Hey, nice bench.
Not really. The finish is kind of chips.
The finish is coming off? What are you saying?
I think we need to refinish it.
Guess we gotta refinish a bench on this episode of Homebuilt Workshop. I made this bench a few years ago. It's got an oil-based Spar Urethane as the finish. If you've ever used Spar Urethane, you'll know that it's a pretty durable finish, but if you don't reapply it, it really just doesn't hold up. Guess what? I didn't reapply it. Now this finish is flaking off. It's almost completely gone on the top of this poor bench. I think we can fix that. Spar Urethane chips, great with dip.
So good.
Don't eat it. Don't eat finished chips. So let's get this thing hauled over by the workshop and see if we can get it cleaned up. After arming ourselves with some scrapers, we began scraping off all of the loose chunks of finish. And really, that was almost all of it. This finish was in horrible condition, and we discovered a few other things that we might need to take care of as well.
There's also scratches in the wood. These two legs are loose right here. The epoxy down there is cracked.
It was actually kind of fun peeling this stuff away, and we tried to see how big we could get the chunks of finish.
Look at this, Dada.
Holy moly! It's like coming off all in one piece almost. Look at this.
It's like as big as a scraper.
Yeah. We built this several years ago just from some kind of reclaimed wood. It's nothing fancy. I believe this is some sort of a softwood, and I know the legs are some sort of a softwood. It's got a Spar Urethane finish on it, and I just really didn't maintain it like you're supposed to. Even though Spar Urethane is made for outdoors, that doesn't mean that it's a permanent finish, and this is a good example to show just that. Spar Urethane works well, but it's got to be maintained. Once the finish starts to degrade, it's pretty much over, and it's gonna end up coming off just like this is.
So the moral of this story is, take care of your equipment.
Take care of your equipment. Even though it's got an outdoor finish, don't expect it to last forever. In our climate here, we have very strong sunlight, and it just tears this sort of finish up. And, well, it's nobody's fault but my own that we have to redo this like that. Under normal circumstances, a lot of times just a light sanding and reapplication of the finish is gonna be enough, but this time around, it's not. The sides aren't quite as bad. It's just that top surface where that sunlight really bakes down on it. Yeah, the sides, I think we're gonna be okay. Just to sand that down, add some new finish on top of it. I think it'll be just fine.
Do you really have to re-add the stuff on the sides?
We'll just clean it up. It'll look nicer if we just clean up the whole thing. All right, I think we've got the majority of the big chunks. I think it's time for your favorite part. Sanding. I'm starting out with some 80 grit sandpaper on my random orbit sander. If I had anything coarser, I'd use that to make this process go a lot quicker, but 80 grit is the coarsest I have, so it's gonna have to work. There's a few spots here where the finish is still pretty stuck, but it's making it really hard to sand, so I'm gonna try to knock some more of this loose with a scraper. After a little bit of scraping, it's back to the random orbit sander. And I think Haley's getting tired of watching me sand and decided to steal the camera. While I was sanding, I noticed this bench had a little bit of a cup in it, so I decided to grab a hand plane and flatten that out a little bit. So we've got the top pretty well sanded out, flattened it a little bit. Now we're just going around and doing the funnest little bit of hand sanding just to get some of the edges, some of the sides, so that we can then proceed to fill in a couple of cracks, get this thing refinished. As we're sanding this, I'm pretty sure that this is some kind of a cedar. It just has kind of a cedar smell. What do you want to do about these legs, kiddo?
Let's just leave them as they are, and if they become a problem later on, we'll fix them.
I agree with that. We discovered that for some reason these legs are a little bit loose. They don't appear to be in any danger of falling off or anything. They're doweled in from two different directions. If I remember correctly, I think I glued this with epoxy. I feel like maybe the epoxy failed, or through changes in temperature and humidity, the wood's moved around, but whatever the reason is, these are a little bit loose, but we decided right now not to mess with it. If they seem like they're gonna get looser, then we'll address it at that moment. But for now, even though they do have a little bit of play in there, I don't think we have to worry about them falling off or anything. So we're just gonna proceed. Now, before we reapply a new finish, I need to address a couple of these cracks. When I initially built this bench, there were cracks in there and I filled it with some epoxy, and it looked pretty cool for a while, but now for some reason, some of the epoxy is gone, and we just need to fill in these cracks because it's gonna be spots where moisture can be trapped in there. I think this time, what are we gonna fill it with?
Glue, because we don't have any more epoxy.
I think we'll try some CA glue.
Now we're gonna blow the dust out of the cracks, because this epoxy, no good. So, there you go.
Thank you.
This part right here is pretty much all epoxy all the way down. So, we have to get this filled in. Otherwise, well, there is no otherwise for this bench anyways. We decided to use the brown CA glue to fix up some of these cracks. Hopefully this will work and we don't have to try to get some more epoxy to fix them again. And hopefully we have enough CA glue.
Well, that didn't take anywhere near as much CA glue as I thought. Only about half a little bottle. Now, we're ready to sand this off again.
Now, we have to coat this thing with some like pickle relish or something. I don't know, but let's do it.
What are we putting on there?
Pickle relish?
Pickle relish?
I have no idea what we're putting on here. Spar Urethane. This would be putting Spar Urethane on here.
Otherwise known as pickle relish.
Otherwise known as pickle relish. Okay, how do you get this lid off?
Mix well before using.
Stir well.
Oh, there you go. Even better. Stir well before using. We're using a regular foam brush to apply this finish. Overall, we'll probably end up applying about 2 good coats on this bench. That's looking good, kiddo. So we've applied another coat to our bench. Now we just need to wait for it to dry. What are we gonna do while we wait for this to dry? I've got a couple ideas. Let's jump on the trampoline. Spend the night in the tent in our yard. Bake a loaf of homemade pumpkin bread. Eat the loaf of homemade pumpkin bread. It's a good thing it takes a while for this urethane to dry, because we have a lot of things to do. Well, our bench is dry. Turned out pretty good. Actually, quite a lot nicer than I expected after waiting several years before maintaining this finish. We ended up with a couple bugs in it because I left it outside to dry, but yeah, it's fine. At least they're sealed in from the weather. Thanks for your help refinishing this thing, kiddo. We'll try not to wait so long next time before maintaining the finish. Hope you guys enjoyed this fall break project. It's kind of nice to have a couple things checked off the list as winter is fast approaching around here. We'll see you next time.